The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Next man up. It's not only the world that NFL players live in. It's the title of a best-selling book by the late, great John Feinstein, who spent a season with the Baltimore Ravens and followed them as players would go down with injuries and other players would, as they say, step up into their spot. And so now Brandon Coleman gets to step up with Laremy Tunsil having surgery on his torn triceps. That confirmed today by Dan Quinn, coach of the Commanders, as he held a news conference. And life moves on in the NFL. Look, Brandon Coleman started 12 games in his rookie year when the team went 12-5 and went to the NFC Championship game. So he does have some experience protecting the blind side for Jaden Daniels, and they expect that he will do an adequate job. That's just life in the NFL. And it's going to lead to a lot of questions about, should they have had Laremy Tunsil doing this one-on-one passing drill with the Dafe Owe? Is hitting necessary in training camp, especially when you lose your best player? You know, that's football. It can happen at any time. Teddy Bridgewater just retired again. This was kind of a surprise because he was going to be the backup quarterback to Jared Goff in Detroit, and I guess he just decided at 33 that's enough, and he quit. I don't know whether he's going to come back again. He's had multiple comebacks in the NFL, but the point being, he suffered a devastating knee injury when he was with Minnesota. He was going to be their franchise quarterback, and he hurt himself in a practice. Do you not practice? Do you not play exhibition games? You know, I remember, you want to go way back, 1993, which was the Richie Pettibone year. That was after Joe Gibbs had retired in March of 93, and probably they didn't have time to get a media guide together with Richie's picture on it because that would have been the way to go. So Jim Lachey, he was Laremy Tunsil 33 years ago. He was the best left tackle in the game. He was on the cover of the media guide, and Lachey tore his ACL in the first exhibition game, didn't play a snap that entire season. They went 4-12. I don't know if he was the biggest reason they didn't win many games that year, but it didn't help. Didn't help not having their best. And in many ways, you could say that Tunsil is their best player in that he's the only one on the team who's ranked in the top 10 for whatever these rankings are worth for players in the league. But he, you know, when you bring in a guy like that, you bring him in for one specific purpose, and that is to protect your franchise. And your franchise is number 5, Jaden Daniels. And they traded 4 draft picks to get him, 2 in 25 and 2 in 26 to Houston. And they got Tunsil in a 4th-round pick, started 14 games last year, and did some mentoring to Josh Connerly, who's going to be their right tackle, and was, by all accounts, worth the price. Great teammate, great player, should have made the Pro Bowl, did not. When you win 5 games, you get overlooked for those kind of things. But no, that's football. There's really nothing you can do about it. It has a 100% injury rate. Every player will suffer some type of injury during the season. Is it going to put them out for a game? Not all the time, because you play in pain in the NFL. But it's a brutal game, and things happen. And, the second-guessing and the hand-wringing, yeah, what are you going to do? And when the league goes to 18 games, they didn't manage to get it done for the 27 seasons. So for the next 2 years, it's going to be 17 games. But you can guarantee it that when they get to the next collective bargaining agreement, the owners are going to push hard for 18 games, and they're going to get it. And by the end of the year, who knows what you have. I've said this for many years. We're going to have a Super Bowl where both teams are starting backup quarterbacks. League going to care? No. 150 million people watch the Super Bowl. But we've had Super Bowls with backup quarterbacks, and we've had Super Bowls won with backup quarterbacks. We have not had a Super Bowl where 2 backup quarterbacks have started, but that's coming. It's just the meat grinder nature of professional football. The guys are bigger, stronger, and faster than they've ever been injuries happen. It's just a fact of life. Anyway, I'm back in the saddle here. I spent a week in Vermont. Those of you who set your calendar by me know that I go to Vermont the first week of August. I've been doing that since I was a kid. Dear friends have a house right on a reservoir, and it's a wonderful week of relaxation and eating bad, too much beer, too many cookies, things like that. So getting back on track. And aside from, I believe it's the 21st of September, which is Yom Kippur, and a few days here and there around the bye week and Thanksgiving and things like that, I'm good for the rest of the year. Keep your fingers crossed on that. When I say good for the rest of the year, I'm assuming good health and all the great things that come along with being me, because I've had very few sick days over the years, but glad to be back and ready to roll for the football season. Jaden Daniels talking on Saturday with the NFL Network, Mike Garafolo and Brian Baldinger. And I guess at this point, they didn't really know anything about Laremy Tunsil. They knew that he had left the field with some pain, but it wasn't reported until later in the day. In fact, Garafolo had it later in the day that it was a torn triceps, and then confirmed by Dan Quinn today, who says that Tunsil's going to need surgery. But Daniels, very upbeat, optimistic, and talking about the new offense under David Blau, which, of course, has him under center more often.
I trained that over my time, even though I didn't have to use it as much, but you want to be versatile for whatever comes, whatever you want to be able to adapt. But it was an adjustment for me. I'm not going to say I just had it from day one, but it's been an adjustment.
Here's my assessment. I think you know where Terry McLaurin is. I won't talk too much about schematics, but you're hitting him in stride. The chemistry between you two is as good as it's ever been. Am I accurate in that assessment?
You are accurate. Fine 17, I think some good things will happen.
Yeah, and he's I remember seeing him in this way. It's a whole different situation for him. Last year he had the contract stuff going on. How different is he this year in his approach?
Super different. I mean, it's good just to have his presence back out here. He elevates not only just us, but the whole team, makes the DBs better and everybody. Just to give him an opportunity to go out there and make plays, bring the energy. The fans love Terry. He's a fan favorite. And he just brings that juice each and every day.
Jim, we asked your new receiver, Stefon Diggs, here a few minutes ago, just about catching your football for the first time. And he said, man, he can spin it. We know that. But what's the relationship been just in warm-ups here and just throwing for 2 days with him? And what do you feel? Can you read his body language?
100%. I think he does a great job of being definitive with his routes. Very much he's friendly when he comes out the top of his routes. Great hands. I mean, he catches everything. Catches everything. He's super smart. I mean, he knows coverage. He's not going to run the route to get covered. We kind of hit that earlier today in practice. We didn't really talk about it too much, but just two people being on the same page and be able to know football and read coverage, it worked out that way.
One of the other guys we had up here was Sonny Styles, who's a rookie, who says the difference between college and here is, you're in coverage and you think you got it covered, and then the ball gets delivered in a certain spot. And he cited you. He said he'll put it low and away because he knows where I am. The ball's got to be in a certain spot. Is that something that you were continue to working on, to sort of progressing in your game, is not just throwing to the open guy, but throwing to a certain spot?
Yeah, you got to throw people open in this league. Sonny gets paid to make plays. The guys are going to go get paid to make plays. They're going to make it tough. So to be able to be a high-level quarterback and be able to produce in this league, you got to be very accurate with the football. Other than that, ball's going to go the other way if you give DBs a chance to go out and make a play.
I'm curious, Jaden. You wear the lipstick camera on your helmet.
Yeah.
Do you watch that video, and what do you glean from that?
I personally don't watch it, but
you're living it.
I am living it. The coaching staff goes out there and they watch it just to see my process and see how if I'm painting a picture while calling the play, calling the huddle. Stuff like that, just to hear how I'm delivering the message, am I communicating, getting everybody on the same page, stuff like that. So it's really just more so the process.
You mentioned huddle. Yeah. And it's a real huddle.
It's a real huddle.
It's a real huddle now.
It is.
Like, is that new? Is it new and different, and do you like it?
I did a little bit my last year at Arizona State, but I would say it's fairly new. I do like it. You get a chance to connect with everybody in the huddle and get everybody on the same page. Everybody's looking at me. Got to be able to deliver the play call, paint the picture for everybody so we can all be on the same page. And it's something about just the ready break, the break out the huddle, take the ball with some urgency, man. Let the defense know that we're ready to go.
Can you tag a play just a little bit better from leaving the huddle?
Yes.
If you hear something late from David or you see something at the line of scrimmage.
Yes. I think it's just be able to get everybody on the same page because, you go out there, people are outside the huddle and stuff like that. It's easy to communicate hand signal wise, but sometimes more verbally, they can really get what we're trying to get, the concept of things. So it's been like that. But at the line of scrimmage, man, they gave me the freedom to check to, stuff to get the premier pay, the right look, just based off of formation and the look I'm getting. But I know just better work if I do that.
Let me back up to, because the camera on the helmet, when it first got introduced 15, 20 years ago, something like that, I remember coaches saying, well, it's because we want to see what they're looking at.
Yeah.
But you're telling me it's also... they want to hear everything in the huddle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some Big Brother type stuff. Man. They're looking over your shoulder. Better not groan about the coaches in the huddle too. Like, what's this play call?
Nah. It's more so like, it's kind of different because I could be looking in that direction, but my eyes might be actually looking at something else because they're at the top of the helmet.
Matthew Stafford type stuff.
Hey, I'm not gonna say I'm there, but Matthew Stafford does it the best I've seen.
It's unreal.
I think I've tried it.
Do you practice it much?
Yeah, I try to practice it all the time.
You do?
I don't know how he does it. You got to have a lot of cojones to be able to do it.
Those throws in the middle of the field.
Yeah, to be able to do it in the game, you got to have
cojones,
some.
skins on the wall,
Yep.
Stuff that you've, at this point in your career, you can try that stuff. Have you even come close to trying it in the game?
No. I don't want to be the person that tries it and just throws it straight to the middle linebacker, and now I got to go make a tackle.
Right.
Yeah, and he has managed to avoid interceptions. That's been another key to his success. So, yeah, you read things, you hear things. He looks great in camp. I don't know how you really tell. You always hear about these receivers who look great catching passes from the jugs gun. Let's see when the real bullets fly. Now, it is going to be interesting this week, because they're going to have one of those joint practices. And this is becoming more and more common in the NFL. The Patriots came here at least once, maybe twice when Tom Brady was playing. This is really more what the preseason is about. It's not about these phony baloney exhibition games. Those are just to make money and put stuff on television. The practice that's going to take place on Wednesday between the Dolphins and the Commanders, that's where the starters are going to play. They're not going to play. And I would imagine Daniels is not going to play in this first preseason game at all. He may get a series or two in the second one. He's not going to play in the final one, and they're going to want him ready for Philadelphia in week one. But these practices where you got ones versus ones, those are significant. And that's going to take place on Wednesday, and we'll see how Jaden Daniels looks against Miami's number one. This story is just gets more and more bizarre by the day. The Kyle Shanahan story. Now, he had a car accident on July 14th. So today's August 10th. This is almost a month ago. It was 12 days before we heard anything about it. And then, wow, he was hurt pretty badly. He had a concussion, 3 broken ribs, a broken left hand. He had stitches where they said he could see his skull. What? Really? You didn't hear a thing about it. Nobody reported anything. And then Chris Sims comes out. Sims is friends with Shanahan. They played together at Texas. And he said, I was sitting there talking to my wife every day. Like, how come nobody's got this story? Well, you kind of work for a news outlet here. Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio. Florio would have loved to have had that story. Sims didn't give it to him. And then Shanahan brings in some beat reporters, guys who women too, people who covered the team on a regular basis into his office, and he talked about, I reached for my cell phone, took my eyes off the road for a minute, and said he was only going like 20 miles an hour. Doesn't seem like you'd have these kind of injuries at 20 miles an hour. He took blame for the accident, which was not in the accident report, which was strange. And he never said anything when he talked to reporters, a week or so ago, about that he was using the self-driving feature of the Tesla, that you can use the automatic driver on that. And now he's saying, when he's talking to reporters as training camp is underway, he said, he said, maybe that failed, the autopilot. He said he'd been using autopilot in some form for 9 years. He's, quote, pretty comfortable with it. Wasn't sure whether the accident was a result of a malfunction or whether he had inadvertently turned autopilot off. while trying to retrieve his phone. Well, the Tesla people, they got to be freaking out over this because Shanahan is indicating that it failed for no apparent reason. I mean, that's not something they want. I know someone who uses the autopilot on Tesla. Was it that he inadvertently turned it off? That's significant rather than the feature failed. He did take the blame for it, and maybe that's a way that he's hoping it's going to go away. But I think there's more to this story than has been told by Kyle Shanahan. Looks like he's going to be okay. There's even some talk he might coach during the exhibition season. They play their first game in Australia, which will be on a Wednesday night this year against the Rams, and they're hoping he can be back for that. But there's more to this. There's more to this story that we're not finding out about. It's just too much stuff spilling out. And what are they trying to hide? And if it was failure on the autopilot, why didn't this come out right away? Why do we find this out almost a month later? It's odd. And whenever you have a story like this, there's always stuff that comes out later and go, whoa, we didn't know that. I have no idea what it is, but that's something you reveal right away. Like, yeah, I was using autopilot. He didn't say that. He just said he was driving, like most of us do. I don't have autopilot. I drive a car that doesn't have that. And he was reaching for his cell phone. He took his eye off the road for a minute. And why is he reaching for his cell phone? Don't you have Bluetooth? I mean, someone who makes, I'm sure, a lot of calls from the car. Football coaches are always busy, always talking to people around the league, talking to their coaching staff. Why is he reaching for his phone when he's in the car? And if he is, why is he maybe inadvertently turning off autopilot, or did autopilot fail? This is just too much. I don't know if we'll ever find out. They've done a good job of covering this up, but there's just too much here that's uncertain that makes me believe that there's something going on. I don't know what it is. Something going on. Hall of Fame speeches over the weekend. Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. And something from Roger Craig that the league did not want to hear. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
They had the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremonies over the weekend. And a number of names went in this year. And we will get to some of the comments that they made, including Drew Brees, who was very passionate about playing quarterback and what it meant to him. I think it's a really good description that he had on Saturday. Also, Larry Fitzgerald went in, second leading receiver of all time. Adam Vinatieri, only the third kicker in NFL history to make it. We'll play some of that stuff in the next hour. But Roger Craig got in the same category that Joe Jacoby should be in. Both Craig and Jacoby were passed over in that period of time. I believe it's 25 years after you finish playing. Brian Mitchell is still in that window. He may still have an opportunity to make it with the usual group. I don't know how you describe the group. I think it's 39 people. Used to be just writers. I think there's some broadcasters in there now that make these decisions and decide who gets into the Hall of Fame every year. So Craig was in a separate category for people who've been passed over by that committee, but they get a second shot with the seniors committee. And look, he was part of those great teams with the 49ers. He was a key player there. He was the first player in NFL history to catch 1,000 yards worth of passes and rush for 1,000 yards in the same season, part of that Bill Walsh offense. He also, by the way, had a key fumble which allowed the Giants to go on and win that Super Bowl with Jeff Hostetler. The second one they won under Parcells. I don't think that happens if Craig doesn't fumble. But he has, impressive statistics, and I think probably should be in the Hall of Fame, just as Joe Jacoby should be in the Hall of Fame. But Craig got in, and he's 63 years old. And he has a form of dementia which may be related to football. He's not the only one. There's quite a few of those. But is there a direct link between playing in the NFL and dementia? No. There's other players who've had concussions and it hasn't worked that way. So, I mean, maybe the frequency would be higher with players who played. But generally in these Hall of Fame speeches, there's a lot of thanking of other people. I think they go on too long. They tried to cut them down a few years ago. The number has crept back up. Drew Brees, I think, went 26 minutes on Saturday. But Craig's dementia is at the point where he did not feel comfortable doing a live speech. And I remember when Bobby Beathard went in. Now, you could say, well, Beathard didn't play in the NFL, and that's true. He played in college, and he had dementia, so I don't know if it was necessarily related to that. Bobby was older. I think Bobby was like 80, over 80 when he got in the Hall of Fame. But Craig is 63 years old, and he needed to do it in a scripted way, I guess, so they could stop if they needed to, and he could read it off a prompter and so forth and so on. But this was part of the tape speech that I'm sure had officials from the NFL cringing.
Today, there's another chapter I want to share. I've been diagnosed with vascular dementia that my doctors believe may be related, at least in part, to the concussions I experienced during my career. The changes were gradual. At first, they were easy to dismiss as normal aging. Over time, my family noticed it too, and ultimately led us to seek answers from my doctor. Two things can be true. Football gave me opportunities beyond anything I could imagine. It helped shape the man I became. At the same time, we know more today about brain health than when I played. And I hope sharing my story encourages people to pay attention to their health and seek help when something doesn't feel right. I want people to know this diagnosis doesn't define me. I am still Roger Craig. I am still a father, a husband, a teammate, a friend, and someone who loves this game and the people who brought it to my life. If sharing my story helps even one family or one former player, then it's worth it. Football gave me everything: opportunity, discipline, lifelong friends, and a platform to grow as a man.
I left in those last 10 seconds because I think that is representative of almost everybody who played in the NFL. For years and years, I did Radio Row at the Super Bowl. We do our show from a ballroom or a hotel where the Super Bowl was taking place with, maybe up to 50 or 60 other radio stations. And they would bring around, especially early in the week, a number of players who were looking for better benefits from the NFL. And my buddy Tom Lavero said it's like going to a tobacco convention and they're bringing around people with cancer. That these players said, we suffered these type of injuries. It wasn't always dementia. Sometimes it was other type of injuries, but they wanted compensation. They wanted the league to take better care of them. Roger Craig isn't asking for that, but he's bringing out an element that comes along with football that they don't like to talk about. They always talk about how the game is getting safer, and even Craig, alluded to that there. He said the game is safer now. You can argue that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But when a guy goes into the Hall of Fame, that's supposed to be a great celebration of football, and it is. But he talked about having dementia, but he also made sure to say, but football gave me everything. And that's what these players who would come around during Radio Row would say is, yeah, I have this injury, I have that injury, I can't do this, I can't do that, my back hurts all the time, but I wouldn't trade anything. Playing football was that great. It was that great for me. And I don't know if anything comes of what Craig said, but I'm sure officials from the league were cringing at that. This is the Hall of Fame, which is not necessarily run by the NFL, but it certainly has major connections to the NFL. And when a player comes out and says these type of things, this is not a good look. It's not a good look at all for the NFL. And you can hear his speech is halting. He's 63 years old. He's not 93 years old. And, that's the reality of playing football. And you play a long time at a position like that. That's one of the most dangerous positions there is. Running back, slot receiver, you're taking hits in the wide open field. That they add up. And clearly he is suffering the effects of that. Whether it's directly related to playing football, we don't know. But he does have some form of dementia, and he says that his doctors have told him. He says it in there that the doctors have told him that it could be related to that. All right, Drew Brees. Drew Brees played 20 years in the NFL, played the first 5 for the Chargers, was the first pick of the second round. And, it's funny the way his career unfolded because the Chargers were so unsure of him after 4 years that they drafted Phillip Rivers. Well, they initially drafted Eli Manning. Eli Manning didn't want to play there, but they made sure they got themselves a quarterback when they made a trade to get Phillip Rivers and send Eli Manning to the New York Giants. And in his fifth year, Brees was becoming that quarterback. He was becoming that good. But in the last regular season game, he suffered a shoulder injury that they thought might end his career. Dr. Andrews, Dr. Beanie with the Commanders, or then the Redskins back in the day. James Andrews, the guy who makes all the surgeries for the NFL players. He managed to save his career by operating on his shoulder, and he came back to play for the New Orleans Saints, which is, I think, where he would be most associated with. Played there for 15 years and won a Super Bowl. But I think what you get here in the speech from Drew Brees is a sense of what it means to play quarterback in the NFL. And Steve Young does a really good job of articulating that you are doing something that you are one of the best in the world in. There are very, very few guys who are that good. Yes, there are 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe 10 are at an elite level. So when you are at an elite level and make the Hall of Fame, you're really, really good. And Drew Brees, who was only 6 feet tall, they didn't know if he could even play in the NFL, went on to have this long Hall of Fame career and accumulate some of the biggest stat numbers that any quarterback has ever had. But I think he articulates this really well. This is about a minute and a half. He articulates the feeling of playing quarterback and what it meant. And this is why guys play as long as they can, because they know there's going to be nothing in their life, again, that can match that, no matter what kind of success they have. And Steve Young has gone on to great success in business and in broadcasting. Brees so far has had a so-so career as a broadcaster. I think he's got his second go-round going now. But as a quarterback, he was one of the best, and here's how he articulates what it meant to him.
I don't take for granted that I got to play the most coveted position in all the sports. From as far back as I can remember, I wanted to play quarterback. I never saw the position as one of pressure, but rather one of great responsibility. Bill Parcells described it as the steady hand that steers the ship. Marty Schottenheimer would say, there is no position on the field whose performance has greater impact on those around him. Bill Walsh often emphasized that great quarterback play is about making the correct decisions repeatedly. The quarterback is the distributor of hope and confidence, a master of probability, the ultimate problem solver. I've always seen the game of football and the quarterback position as a true art form, like a song or a dance. The key to the art form was controlling the rhythm of the game. Everything had a rhythm, from the articulation of the play in the huddle, to the pre-snap cues and communication, to the cadence and the snap of the ball, to your feet dropping back, the timing and flow of your hitch or your gather, to the 0.3 seconds between your front foot hitting the ground that set off a combustion of energy from the ground force all the way from your toes to your fingertips, as it translates power to the pronation and the spin of the ball as it releases into the atmosphere. That feeling is what I live for.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything else in his life that can match that. He could go on to have success as a broadcaster, business, whatever he's going to get into. But that feeling that he just talked about there, the 0.3 seconds of your foot hitting the ground and the explosion of the throw and the challenge of playing the position, can't do it again. Just can't do it. And I thought that was very well said. He mentioned Marty Schottenheimer. That's kind of forgotten in his career because he's most associated with Sean Payton and should be. Spent his career in New Orleans playing for Payton. But Marty came along in his second year. Brees was drafted in 2001, second round out of Purdue after he'd taken them to the Rose Bowl. And he was there for 5 years, 01 to 05. Marty came in 02 after he got fired here after doing a great job. They started 0-5, got back into it 5-5, and finished 8-8. But Dan Snyder wasn't having any fun because Marty was calling all the shots, and Dan wanted to be back in charge. Dan wanted to be making the trade, so he fired Marty Schottenheimer and brought in Steve Spurrier, and 5-11, not too good, not too good. Marty went on to the Chargers, and unfortunately for Marty, that mirrored most of his career. That was his last head coaching run in the NFL. He was there from 02 to 06, and they would have great regular seasons, but in the playoffs, Marty's teams did not perform. But he was well respected as a coach, especially by Drew Brees, who says that Marty should be in the Hall of Fame, and discussed the impact that Marty Schottenheimer and his staff had on him as a young player with the Chargers.
Marty was my biggest fan. He would tell me that all the time, even as he benched me 3 times and made me fight for my job every year with 2 greats, Doug Flutie and Phillip Rivers. The first 2 times I got benched, I deserved it. The 3rd time, I still don't think I deserved it, Coach. But nonetheless, it lit more than a fire. It forced me to access a place in my mind and my heart that I had not yet been. The adversity was not expected, but very necessary. I would never have reached the heights I did without it. I knew I needed to play better, but more importantly, I knew that he believed I would play better. Thank you to Coach Cam Cameron and Brian Schottenheimer, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach for the Chargers. I'll never forget a film session in 2003. I was coming off a tough game, and as we watched the tape together, they asked me the question, hey, why didn't you throw to this receiver? He was wide open. To which my response was, I couldn't see him. The tape paused. There was a moment of silence. They glared at me and said, it's your job to see. You reach a point in your career when you stop making excuses. It's usually a moment or an event where you flip a switch or make a very conscious decision, and it becomes part of your being. They were right, and never again would those words or thoughts come out of my mouth. I would need to find a way to play the game a little bit different, even if it was in a way that had not been done before. It would shape me for what came next. New Orleans. When we bought our home in the heart of uptown New Orleans, Brittany and I could not have been more excited and scared to embark on this new journey and chapter in our lives. As we were moving in, containers of housewarming gifts began to show up at the front door. As I opened the lid to the first container, expecting to see brownies or perhaps chocolate chip cookies, it was rather the smell of butter and onions and Cajun seasoning and a dark roux that made up crawfish etouffee. The next day it was jambalaya, the next it was gumbo, and we're not talking a small container, we're talking a big vat of the best home-cooked Louisiana flavors you could imagine. Welcome to New Orleans. But nothing compares to what we experienced every Monday night during my career in New Orleans. For 15 years straight, and this is no exaggeration, our neighbors, Steve and Kathy Price, would make our family red beans and rice and cornbread. Whether it was their house, our house, or with great friends like Trombone Shorty, it was what we all look forward to together. It was the perfect representation of what New Orleans is all about. It doesn't take you long to realize what makes New Orleans so special. New Orleans has been through a lot, to the point where in some cases the feeling was we may have lost everything. It may never come back the same. Storms teach us that our greatest treasures aren't the things that we own. They're the people we love and the way we show up for one another. It reminds us to hold our loved ones a little closer, to love a little harder, to laugh a little louder, and to never take a single day for granted. Sometimes it takes losing what can be replaced to truly appreciate the things that can't. New Orleans. You accepted me. You embraced me. You believed in me. But more importantly, you trusted me with the soul of the city, and I would have died to protect that calling.
And obviously a lot of New Orleans fans there. You know, the Breeze shoulder may have changed the course of college football entirely. That's the ripple effect of that, because Breeze got hurt, San Diego. Dr. Andrews operated on the shoulder. It was iffy whether he could, continue to play. He had a workout with the Dolphins. Nick Saban was the coach then. Saban wanted to sign him. Front office was too nervous to do it. They signed Dante Culpepper. The Saints took a chance. What did they have to lose? They're coming off Katrina. The city needed to rebuild. The quarterback needed to rebuild, and they did that together. If he goes to the Dolphins with Nick Saban, Saban's a great coach. I mean, yeah, he did it in college, but he didn't have the quarterback with the Dolphins. If he had Drew Brees in Miami, who knows? Maybe he goes on to win Super Bowls, and Alabama is still scuffling around hiring the Mike Shulas of the world. Crazy how things work out. But obviously, it was a match made in heaven going to New Orleans, and shortly thereafter, they won a Super Bowl, which was another big part of the story. This was Brees on his coach, Sean Payton, who he had as his inductor going into the Hall of Fame over the weekend.
I miss our dot meetings, Coach. The night before every game, talking through every play, every situation, every matchup in the greatest of detail. I would literally ask Sean, hey, Coach, when do you think you'll call this play? He would squint his eyes and purse his lips. You know that look. Second quarter, across midfield, probably 47-yard line, 2nd and 10, left hash, left middle maybe. They'll never expect it. Precise, instinctive. Coach, you were brilliant. I saw myself as an extension of you on that field. I always had something to prove to you, and I always wanted to make you right. And I know you trusted me, and that allowed us both to be great. I miss sitting next to you, Orny, and Coach Vitt on the bus in Philly as eggs would hit our bus from Eagles fans on the way to the stadium, and just watching you grin with satisfaction. I missed the 3-hour flights home from Dallas to New Orleans after a big win. By the way, folks, that's only supposed to be an hour flight. But Sean would have the pilot circle 10 times so we could soak up the celebration on the plane a little bit longer.
Funny line. I don't think the FAA would allow that. The cost of the jet fuel, I don't know. But makes for a good story. And certainly the Peyton-Breeze relationship is, right there with Brady and Belichick and Walsh and Montana. I mean, these are great quarterbacks who, with their coaches, and they go hand in hand, made magic together. And I thought his speech was really well done. Coming up, this is something that I think it needs to be recognized. People leave coaching and they get forgotten. But Don Nelson, who's been out of coaching for quite a while, the impact that he left on the NBA, Nelson dying over the weekend at 86, if you unpack it, you're like, whoa, look at the modern NBA and the effect that Nelson had on it. And we will get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
You heard over the weekend that Don Nelson passed away at the age of 86. Spent 34 years in the NBA as a player and as a coach, 1976 to 2010. Well, 2010 is 16 years ago, and time passes quickly. And the Golden State Warriors, who he coached with at the end, that was the end of his coaching career. They've gone on to become a dynasty since then. In fact, it was Don Nelson who drafted Steph Curry, and Curry has taken the torch and 4 championships and one of the greatest players who ever played, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Don Nelson gets forgotten for what he did. But if you unpack those 34 years in the NBA as a player and as a coach, they are absolutely remarkable. Now, this was the TV report yesterday when it came out in the Bay Area that Nelson had passed away. Chris Alvarez, the sports reporter for the ABC affiliate out there.
Nelly coached 11 years of the Warriors over his 2 stints, and he's being remembered as a true basketball visionary, coaching the Warriors during some of the franchise's most memorable moments, including the Run TMC era and the We Believe team back in 2007. In 31 NBA seasons as a head coach, Nelly recorded 1,335 wins, the most in league history at the time of his retirement back in 2010. During the 2025 NBA Finals just a few years ago, the Hall of Famer received the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Basketball Coaches Association. Such a big honor that he left his home on Maui to fly to Oklahoma City for the presentation. Nelson currently has the second most coaching wins in NBA history, trailing only his friend Greg Popovich, who he called last year after receiving the prestigious honor.
Pop, I said, I got the Chuck Daly Award. He said, I know, I'm on the board. So I figured that's the reason I got it, or at least one of them. He's my dear friend and one of my best friends in my life. So I'm really, really proud to be here and to share this award. I made the Hall of Fame in 2012, and this is certainly as important to me as that award was.
Nelson's family says he was surrounded by his loving family when he passed away this morning. They said in a statement, throughout his last week, friends and family encircled him with love, sharing the blessing of his friendship and revisiting treasured memories. The Warriors also released a statement saying, in part, more than anything, Don Nelson will be remembered for his authenticity, larger-than-life personality, and incredible passion for basketball, and his influence on the Warriors franchise will endure for years to come. Nelson was a three-time winner of the NBA Coach of the Year award. Never won an NBA championship, though, as a coach, but as a player, he won 5 NBA titles in 11 seasons with the Celtics, who retired his jersey, number 19, back in 1978.
That's Chris Alvarez, reporter out there in the Bay Area. That's the angle that they have out there. But if you look at the length and the breadth of his time in the NBA, I said 34 years in the league. That's just as a coach. He came in 1962, 17th pick of the draft by the Chicago Zephyrs. The Chicago Zephyrs became the Baltimore Bullets a year later, but that was without Don Nelson, who they released. He wound up with the Lakers for 2 years. And think about if he had managed to ignite his career there with Jerry West, and, you know, maybe he's the difference in getting past the Celtics, but the Lakers didn't play him much. They cut him, winds up with the Celtics, plays 11 years with them, and wins 5 championships. Spanning 2 eras, one, the Bill Russell era, the end of the Russell era, and the beginning of the Dave Cowens era, playing for mostly Tommy Heinsohn. I believe he also would have played for Red Auerbach as well, and then would have played for Bill Russell for a couple of years as well as that. But he was an excellent player, really a fine NBA player, and didn't necessarily know what he was going to do after he finished playing in 1976. He had done some work in the Summer League as a referee. He thought he might do that. He thought he might sell cars, but he got an offer to work with the Milwaukee Bucks, and they had lost Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Jabbar wanted out of Milwaukee. They traded him to the Lakers. The team wasn't very good. He was an assistant to Larry Costello, but only for 18 games. And less than a year after his NBA career ended as a player, he's a head coach, and he has this long run with several teams. But the important thing to know about him is not just that he's the second winningest coach of all time with 1,335 wins. It's that he was such a great innovator along the way. He's the guy who said, wait a minute, we don't have to define these guys as guards or forwards. We have a positionless lineup. And with the Bucks, with the Milwaukee Bucks, he engineered the Paul Pressey point forward position, 6'5" forward with big wingspan and good passer. And he had the ball in his hands, distributing it. And under Nelson, his assists went from 3.1 a game to 6.8 a game. He averaged for his career 7.8 assists in the 1985-86 season, which paved the way for players like Scottie Pippen and Grant Hill, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, guys who are of various sizes, and they play all over the place. People thought it was a joke when he told Manute Bol, who was 7'7", with when he was coaching Golden State, to shoot threes. Well, now we got a variety of players shooting threes at that. Well, not at 7'7", but if you're 7 feet tall, you shoot threes. And he brought in a 7-footer in Dirk Nowitzki and said, "Yeah, stand outside the 3-point line." Yeah, what? He's not a big man. No. That's how he plays. The run TMC teams that he had with the Warriors: Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullen. That's an undersized lineup. That's Lefty Drizel had run that back in Maryland when he had Mo Howard and John Lucas and Brad Davis, the 3-guard offense. He used it in the NBA. He was not supposed to be able to win with small players. Well, that's how he won. He had Dirk Nowitzki playing outside with Steve Nash and Michael Finley, and he embraced the international game. He was the first guy to really go out of his way to scout international guys. When they brought in Dirk Nowitzki, people said, "Oh, where? Germany? Huh?" They drafted Luka Doncic. Well, Doncic was actually drafted by his son, Donnie. Donnie worked in the front office. But that was things that he did. He did things that were not of the ordinary at the time, and now are of the ordinary. I mean, you see Giannis Antetokounmpo shooting threes as a big man. Those are things that did not happen back in the day. You were a big man, or you didn't play. That if you were 7 feet tall, you played inside, and he revolutionized the game in many ways, and also the transformation he made as a person. He comes into the league, drafted by the Chicago Zephyrs in 1962 out of Iowa. He's got a crew cut. He plays with the Celtics, very clean cut. I guess in his later years, in the mid-'70s, he grew his hair out a little bit, but nobody would have predicted, I don't think, unless they really knew him, that he would end his life growing marijuana in Maui. That's what he did. The last 16 years of his life, very different than the life he led in the NBA. Also, he has not passed away, but he is in hospice. Tommy John, 83 years old, and they had the Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium over the weekend. I attended a couple of those over the years. Those are really cool. They get quite a turnout of players, and he wanted to be there, but he sent a message to the fans and to his teammates, former teammates. He said, "I will never forget you." It was definitely a goodbye note. He's had bladder cancer and other ailments in recent years, and now he's in hospice in Bradenton, Florida. But the thing about Tommy John that should be remembered, and maybe there's a miracle and he'll live for some time and make the Hall of Fame, which he should. You wonder if because he's so associated with the surgery, I mean, everybody knows the name Tommy John. They don't necessarily know that he was a great pitcher, that he won 288 games and had an ERA of 3.34. If you look at two pitchers now who are concluding their careers in baseball, Max Scherzer with 222 wins and a very similar ERA, 3.27. Justin Verlander, 266 wins, a similar ERA, 3.33. Verlander has 22 fewer wins. Scherzer has 66 fewer wins. They're going to be automatic Hall of Famers. And Tommy John with 288 has not been able to get a real close chance to get in. He had the surgery. That's the other thing about the amazing part of it. He's 31 years old when he got hurt with the Dodgers. He was having a great year in 1974, didn't pitch in 1975, comes back in 1976, and won 70 games over the next 4 years. I mean, he was one of the top pitchers in baseball at the time. Can't seem to get in the Hall of Fame, and I just wonder if because he's so associated with the surgery and not the pitching, that people overlook how good of a pitcher he was. 288 wins. Yeah, he pitched a long time. He pitched 23 years, made 760 appearances, and I think 740 starts, something like that. But I just think that he gets overlooked because of that. I think that people should look beyond, he's having the Tommy John. It's not just a surgery that was created for his name. It was a surgery created because he was the first to undergo this experimental surgery by Dr. Frank Jobe, and it worked. I mean, you take an elbow ligament from the left arm, or I guess he was a lefty. You put it from the right arm, put it in the left arm, and that was you couldn't think of doing that prior to the mid-'70s, but he went on to do that, and Tommy John went on to pitch until he was in his mid-40s. I think he won more games after the surgery than before it. Pretty amazing. All right, coming up, we'll get to more on the Commanders, what Stefon Diggs said to the NFL Network on Saturday as he begins his career here in D.C. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Oh, the fall of Bill Belichick that's something to behold. There's stuff going on in North Carolina right now. And his son taking medical leave. Okay. Mike Lombardi suspended. A lot of stuff. And Adam Vinatieri, in his Hall of Fame speech over the weekend in Canton, kind of piled on. I mean, Bill Belichick goes from 6-time Super Bowl winner being passed over for the Hall of Fame and now becoming something of a punchline. I don't think we've had a decline quite like this in the history of sports, much less the NFL. We'll get to what Vinatieri said coming up shortly. Stefon Diggs is back in town. He grew up in this area, grew up in Montgomery County, played at good counsel, had a really good career at Maryland. Was hurt a lot, and I think that hurt him when he came out for the draft in 2015. Wasn't selected until the 5th round by Minnesota. The coaching staff here at the time wanted to take him. Dan Snyder put the kibosh on that. Another great move by Danny Boy, meddling. So he goes on to have this, a great career. I don't know if he's Hall of Fame worthy, but he's been a terrific player. With the Vikings, the Bills, the Texans, helped the Patriots get to the Super Bowl, made the Pro Bowl 4 times. So, yeah, he may get some consideration. We'll see how much more he can do during what's left of his career. But Stefon Diggs had gone to Maryland, as he said, for his brother Trayvon. He was concerned about, he was hanging with, and Trayvon actually left good counsel, played at Wooten High School for a couple of years, then played at a private school, played at Alabama, was with Dallas. I don't know whether he's still in the league or not. Dallas cut him. I think it might have been last year. So I don't know if he's on another roster. But Diggs said, look, I felt a responsibility for my brother, and I needed to stay in town to help him. So he played at Maryland and should have been obviously drafted higher than he was in the 5th round. And he's here now to be number 2. Now, he's never really been a number 2 during his career. Even last year, coming off the torn ACL, he caught 85 passes. He had a good year. And they say it takes time to overcome an ACL injury. It's usually more than a year. And more importantly, of the 85 catches that he had with New England last year, 51 of them were for first downs. So he's a go-to guy on 3rd down. I think that's something that's very important to consider here, that he becomes something of a security blanket for the quarterback. And I think of a guy who's similar, different styles, but Henry Ellard came here late in his career. Ellard had a great career with the Rams, came here for the last few years of his career, and he was a precise route runner. So the quarterback always knew where he was going to be. They hope that's going to be the case with Diggs, who now is clearly number 2 to Terry McLaurin, something that he understood when he came here, said he had other offers. But he was with the NFL Network over the weekend when they were here at training camp. And he talked to Mike Garafolo and Brian Baldinger about the move back home to play for the Commanders.
It's been going great. Yeah. It's only my 2nd day. I can't speak too much, but I know the energy's there. Great team, great group of guys. They're all pushing in the right direction, I guess. And, I'm just happy to be here. I'm thankful. Gratitude eliminates entitlement. Being somewhere new, being home. It's just a different kind of energy, and I'm thankful.
His quarterback is pretty special.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I'm sure you watched him, Stefon. I don't know if you've ever caught a pass from him someplace else in Pro Bowl or whatever, but I was just curious, like, what's that like? Catching it, for the first time. Is it a different type of ball? Is it does it matter to you?
It's definitely different. He can spin it. 100% he can spin it. He got those traits of superstar in him, you know, and I don't want to speak too soon, but we've all seen it.
Yeah.
So the success that he has had and that moxie and that energy, I like it. I gravitate to that. I feed off of it. And it's just that balance of that receiver, quarterback, and then you got Scary Terry on the other side. You got some guys that can work the middle. It's a good tandem out there, and I just like the energy, and he's a hell of a player. Hell of a kid, too. You know, he's a grown man, but he's a hell of a kid. I've been in the league a little while now.
Yeah. How much do you know him before you got here?
A little bit, not too much. I was actually closer with C.J. Stroud, and, you know, C.J. spoke highly of him as far as, you know, they knew each other, and they, you know, I kind of like did my homework on him a little bit, but he was a great kid. I only heard great things about him, and, you know, I'm just lucky to be around him and blessed to be in the position I'm in.
I mean, Stefon, you're from Gaithersburg, Maryland. I just looked it up.
Well, people say that. That's what we wrote on where I went to school
what is
at.
it?
Because I was born actually in Virginia, you know, and I got family in D.C., and I lived in PG County. I lived in Montgomery County. I went to school in Montgomery County, so that's what they put. But I'm just from Maryland. You know, I lived everywhere in Maryland. And I don't claim one spot. I just say Maryland. So.
But it is kind of a homecoming.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Parents are still here. You know, like that's got to be fun.
It's a family here, and, like, not just that. I played Little League football here. So people from my childhood, people who watched me grow up as an adolescent and as a young kid, you know, growing into it, man, I'm just thankful to be in the position I'm in now. And come home, it's just like I try to keep a little distance, though, just because, like, let me lock in, let me focus. I used to be in away. Buffalo, you know, Minnesota. That's a little ways away from home. So got that degree.
You came back from a torn ACL.
Yes, sir.
And put up a great year last year.
Right.
Great year. 1 year.
All right.
I saw a touchdown catch against the Houston Texans in a playoff game. Like, that's a great catch.
I could do better. I appreciate it, though.
All right.
What you had a few options.
Yes, sir.
But this was number one for you right now. Why?
One, it was home. I liked something about the team. I liked something about the team. Just the energy, the coaches, and, you know, DQ's a hell of a coach. Talked to AP. It just kind of, they were building something, and they had some success in the recent years. You know, they had some injuries last year, but I like going to be a part of something that's going in that right direction. Like, I had some other option to go some other places, but this made the most sense when you're going in the ways and the pros and cons and how I want my life to see, how I want my life to be built. You know, going into, you know, I'm 32 years old. You know, I'm on the back and I got more football behind me than in front of me. But I want to demonstrate I can hoop still. I can do everything I want to do out here. I could be a great receiver and be a good receiver for Jaden.
What do you like so far about this? It's 2 days.
Yeah, no, but I'm studying.
I'm sure you're digesting like crazy.
Studying every day. Man.
But is there a lot of pre-snap motion that you're used to? Can they isolate you in the slot and put you in a stack and do all those things?
I try not to talk schematics too much, but I'll give you a little bit that I do know in the 2 days that I've been here. They can mix it up. You know, they moving guys around, you know, just like certain offenses that I've been in. And I think they've watched a little bit of a tape of things that I've done well and, you know, things that we can build off of. So I'm excited. You know, when you go in to get a guy or a guy's about to sign, you know, they do their homework, watch their target tape, watch the things that they've done. And they've done a great job.
From an artist standpoint, not everybody's a great route runner.
Yes, sir.
But you're a router. You take a great deal of pride in it. What makes somebody a great route runner?
For me personally, I would say it's not all about speed. You got to run with a pace. You got to have good breaks and good hands. You know what I'm saying? But at the line of scrimmage, you can win. But I'm more so when the plays get going. That's where I work my craft. That's where I work tempo. Just it's a lot of things that go in there. One day when I have some adolescents, when my kids grow up a little bit, I'm gonna teach them how to run routes a little bit. But for me, it's more so pace, being able to control the DB, because a lot of the time the DBs are just as fast, just as quick. It's all about knowing where you're going and how you're gonna get there.
Can I just give you one little thing to add to that?
Go ahead, let me know.
Like, can you change directions without losing speed?
100%.
That's, to me, is a real key.
In and out of breaks. I mean, I've had Keenan McCardell. I've had those guys that been route runners in the league for a little. So he played like 15 years in the league, so he was doing something right. I had him in college, and he kind of raised me when I was becoming a decent receiver. So at this point, I'll just work my best to try to become exceptional. In and out of breaks, you got to be in and out of your breaks. If you're not in and out of your breaks, you got to be a possession guy, and I never want to be that.
No, and you're still not.
No.
You said last year, coming off the ACL, it was okay.
Yeah,
we're telling you it was better than decent, better than okay. I understand where you're coming from. But how do you feel now 1 more year removed?
It's crazy because if you look at the analytics, you know it's 14 months after ACL. And me, like last year, where I say it was an okay year, production-wise, I only played 52% of the snaps. And that was my first time ever doing that. And it was just schematics and how they did on offense. And I love that offense. McDaniels is excuse my language, McDaniels is a genius. And I speak so highly of him. I love him over there. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about offense and, you know, how to get open, and the guys that were there before me, you know, shout out to, you know, JM. But for me, I just feel like where I am now and what I've learned, it's going to help me in the future.
That's Stefon Diggs with Mike Garafolo and Brian Baldinger, NFL Network, on Saturday as the Commanders practice. They're back out there today. If you have not heard, Dan Quinn has confirmed that Laremy Tunsil tore his triceps. He's going to have surgery. Didn't say how long he would be out, but most estimates have 4 months as the upside of that. Could be the whole season. 4 months gets him back in December. If they're in the mix, I would imagine they'll put him back in. If they're not, this could be a lost year for a guy who's making over $30 million a year. As for Diggs, you heard him say he's 32 years old. I was just thinking when he said that, how many teams in NFL history have made the playoffs with receivers 1 and 2 who are 31 and 32 years old? Terry McLaurin is now 31. Stefon Diggs is 32. Not to say that they can't win with that, but that might be a concern because this was all a part of the negotiations last year that dragged through training camp on McLaurin. Oh, he's 30 years old. He's on the downside. And as it turned out, he got hurt last year, didn't play much, played, 10 games. It didn't come close to any of the numbers that he's had throughout his career. Diggs, on the other hand, comes back at the age of 31 off a torn ACL and has a really good year for a better team, for a team that made the Super Bowl. But he did have 85 catches. Maybe there's a big rebound year for McLaurin, and there's reason to believe there will be one since he didn't really have an off season last year except for going through contract negotiations. Didn't participate in a single practice for OTAs or training camp. And then, got hurt during the season. As for Diggs, where he says it's a 14-month recovery, you hope he's 100%, but he is 32 years old. So that could be. But he also, as they talked about, is a great route runner. And that's very important for a quarterback who's still developing. I mean, Jaden Daniels, although he was tremendous as a rookie, had one of the great rookie seasons of all time, he played only 7 games last year. So he hasn't had a lot of NFL experience. And to have a receiver who runs precise routes, somebody who you can count on every down, that's going to be an important part of this. I was not here last week. I imagine there was more discussion of this, but maybe it's my age. But I think this is really awful that the Preakness may be going away, and it may be in response from the Thoroughbred Championship Association Thoroughbred Series. As revenge for what they did. This is a story from Sean Salai in the Washington Times, and they say a new 6 racehorse championship that excludes Baltimore's Pimlico Racecourse could mean the end of the Preakness as a premium sporting event. The Thoroughbred Championship Series, launching next year, will travel from Churchill Downs in Kentucky to Belmont Park and Saratoga Racecourse in New York. It includes the first and last jewels of the Triple Crown, the Kentucky Derby, and the Belmont, and they're skipping the Preakness in between. Now, for most of us, that is the racing season. We don't pay much attention to horse racing except for the 3 Triple Crown races. If you're going to end the Triple Crown series by essentially eliminating the Preakness, what happens next? The new series will give points to the nation's best 3-year-old colts throughout the season as they compete for individual race purses and $5 million in the total prize pool. So what happens now? And one of the things that's been happening over the years, as you know, is that horses who win the Kentucky Derby are skipping the Preakness and going right to the Belmont, never mind the Triple Crown. They don't care enough about it because there's not enough time between the Derby and the Preakness. 2 weeks is not enough time for these elite horses to recover and run in those races, and they're worried about the horses, breaking down. There have been some tragic injuries over the years, and they don't want to do that. The Maryland has put a lot of money into Pimlico. They put $400 million into renovating it, $48 million into Laurel Park, and it is a boon for the economy in Maryland. Creates lots of jobs, creates lots of money, and they want to keep that. According to this story, most analysts outside of Maryland do not believe moving the Preakness to the same day as the Indianapolis 500 will save it, and that is a big concern. It's do you want to run that on the same day and a Memorial Day weekend that gets clogged up with a lot of other things? I mean, it has been a very good. It's good for me because I'm old, and maybe younger people don't give a damn about horse racing. But the numbers tell you that they do well. That NBC has extended its contract with it. They seem to like having it. So I don't know, if this will kill the Preakness, but the fact that it is too close to the Derby, with 3 of the past 5 Derby winners skipping the Preakness, could show you that after all these years, close to 150 years, that there is no need for it anymore. I don't know. I mean, it would be sad. Will my life go on? Of course it will. There's stuff going on all the time. If we don't have a Preakness, okay, we don't have a Preakness. Sometimes I'm doing other things and I don't get a chance to see it. And it's only 2 minutes, but it's like a 4-hour broadcast on NBC, and people do watch it. And what the Thoroughbred Association here has done is come close to killing it. And it's supposed to be run on a Sunday too. I mean, there's certain traditions in sports that there's that Saturday. Of course, the race used to start at like 5:45. Now it starts at like 7 o'clock. So they played with a little bit for television. They like to seg you right into a hockey playoff game or something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of things go away. Things go away. There was a time as we get close to Labor Day where the Jerry Lewis telethon was always a part of Labor Day. Eventually it went away and we survived. So maybe we'll survive without the Preakness, but I, for one, I'm not happy to see it go. All right, Hall of Fame. Back to the Hall of Fame induction speeches over the weekend. This probably got the most play of all. Adam Vinatieri, maybe he's got an axe to grind. I don't know. But he had, I believe, if not the greatest kick in NFL history, one of the greatest. And it happened in the Tuck Rule game. Blinding snowstorm, 48-yard field goal to send the game into overtime, won it with an overtime kick, and that's what really has put him in the Hall of Fame. Though Vinatieri did kick for 24 years, and only 10 of them were with the Patriots, 14 with the Colts, I consider him to be a Patriot. When I think of him in my mind's eye, he's a Patriot. He's kicking that kick in the snow. He's not kicking for the Colts, but he was there longer and actually had Jim Irsay's daughter, who's now running the team, present him and wore one of Jim Irsay's ties at the induction ceremony. But he may have an axe to grind with the Patriots for cutting him loose. Maybe he wanted to play his whole career in New England. Did not, but had this to say, which got some play about his former coach.
To the New England Patriot organization, thank you, Bill Parcells and Mike Sweatman, for taking a chance on an undrafted kid. When others saw limitations, you saw possibilities. To Mr. Kraft and the Kraft family, thank you for believing in me. Thank you for building an environment second to none. These past 25 years of the Patriot dynasty may never be repeated. Your time to join us on this stage and in the hall is right around the corner, and I can't wait. I would repeat those last few statements about Coach Bill Belichick as well. Thank you for demanding excellence every single day. Your preparation, discipline, and attention to detail shaped far more than my football career. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't make it here today. There's a lot going on at UNC right now. He may be on a recruiting trip right now looking for the next Lawrence Taylor. I thought it was because training camp had already started, but in truth, it's because he's judging his girlfriend's cheerleading competition. All jokes aside, in my opinion, Bill is the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah, he had to throw that in there, but, making jokes about the girlfriend at the Hall of Fame. Think about that. He's been out of the NFL for over a year, coached last year in college, surprising many people, back for another year after a disastrous start there. They won only 4 games. And now he's the butt of jokes at the Hall of Fame. He didn't get in the first ballot, which is stunning. They changed the rules for coaches when Vince Lombardi died. Lombardi died a year after coaching the Redskins for 1 year, and he was obviously a Hall of Famer. And they said, well, coaches sometimes are older when they leave. We shouldn't make them wait the 5 years. So Belichick was immediately would have been considered last year, did not get in, and now he's getting dunked on by a kicker, a Hall of Fame coach. He will be in the Hall of Fame, just didn't get in this year, being dunked on by the kicker. More from Vinatieri, and he had jokes. He had plenty of jokes to tell.
I was lucky enough to play with the greatest quarterback in Patriot history. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it here today. Drew Bledsoe. I had a few more Tom Brady jokes, but I was afraid that he'd run up on the stage and maybe give me a Will Smith like he did to Logan Paul last month. Tom, you changed the game forever, but what I'll remember most is the teammate that you were. Your belief in the people around you inspired all of us to raise our standards, and I'm honored our careers became part of the same path.
Yeah, well, one was a quarterback, one was a kicker, a little different, but one finished his career with one team, the other finished his team with another. You know, both of them probably should have been career Patriots, I would think. That would have been something, boy, because they almost sync up. They're almost exactly the same time frame for Vinatieri and Brady. That would have been incredible if you had a kicker and a quarterback there, the same amount of time. Last one from Vinatieri, and this was well played for sure.
Hey, Pat McAfee's here in the crowd today. Great to see you, brother. The only person who enjoyed holding my balls more than my wife. She held for me in the off-season when everyone else was gone. Get that right.
Yeah, and she's a pretty cool person, too. When the camera went on her as he was making that joke, she was laughing. She wasn't hiding her head. So good for him. A couple more. Larry Fitzgerald. Very sad to see this because I can't say that I knew his father, but I did intersect with him at Super Bowls. His father had a great career in media in Minneapolis, both in radio and in newspaper, and had a great relationship with Denny Green, who was the coach of the Vikings when Larry Fitzgerald was in high school. And through his relationship, was able to get his kid Larry a job as a ball boy for the Vikings, where he talk about a great mentorship for a career that would lead him to the Hall of Fame and become the second leading receiver of all time. The two Viking receivers, top receivers, were Chris Carter and Randy Moss. Right? That ain't bad. And this was Fitzgerald at his Hall of Fame induction speech Saturday with a tip of the cap to those guys who helped him out when he was a kid.
Uncle Chris, you took me into your family, into your home, and you gave me an education that shaped every part of who I am today. Your support was endless, and I hope that today feels like a small return on your investment. Thank you. And Uncle Chris, since we got all them pleasantries out the way, I hope we both can agree. My hands have always been better than yours. All right. Another player who changed my life was Randy Moss. People ask me all the time what I learned from Randy Moss, and my answer is always the same: I learned nothing. Because there was nothing I could do like him on the football field. They call him the freak for a reason. But what I did learn from Moss is about generosity. He gave me his clothes. He gave me his size 14 shoes. He came to my high school games. He let me use his car. And he even surprised me with the knock for the Hall of Fame. Randy, being acknowledged by you, someone bigger than life, it meant the world to me. And I'm happy. I'm so happy you're healthy, brother.
Yeah, he has recently overcome cancer, or it's, I guess, battling it. That's something that he has been able at least to have it in remission now, which is a good thing. And again, very, very much of a shame because he only passed away a month or two ago. Larry Fitzgerald Sr. Would have been wonderful for him to be there to see his son inducted into the Hall of Fame. And one more from Fitzgerald, who spent his entire career with the Arizona Cardinals. They got to one Super Bowl, didn't win it, but had an incredible career there. Has to be has to be considered the greatest player in franchise history. I would think so. But funny that when he was beginning his career, the leading rusher of all time was ending his career, and that was Emmitt Smith. And this was Fitzgerald on Emmitt, plus Kurt Warner, who's also in the Hall of Fame.
At 20 years old, I walked into that Cardinals locker room, and the all-time leading rusher made himself available to me. I could talk to him. I could confide in him. I could rely on him. The only thing I couldn't do was beat him and wrestle in the locker room. Man, he was old when I got there, too. He was so old, man. That joker's strong, man. He's strong. Oh, man. But, Emmitt, I admire how you always knew everybody's name in the building and how you always practiced with competitive integrity, even in your last season. Thank you for being such a great example for me. Kurt Warner is my other teammate I want to thank. He came to the Cardinals when I was 21, and he shaped me by the example that he set through his faith, through his service to the community, as a teammate, a husband, and a father, and also his weird, insatiable love for spaghetti. Kurt, when you demanded that I elevate my preparation, consistency, and accountability, you dragged me into the life's winner's circle. The timing couldn't have been better for a young, impressionable kid, and I continue to aspire to be the kind of man that you are.
That's Larry Fitzgerald. Luke Keithley also got in on Saturday. I listened to his speech. I didn't feel any real highlights came out of that, but some pretty good stuff, pretty good jokes from Vinatieri. And if you've not heard or seen the Drew Brees speech, that's one of the better ones. Pablo Torre, still at it. More on Kawhi Leonard. Latest episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out. He had reported some months ago, maybe 6 months ago, that the Clippers had circumvented the salary cap by signing Kawhi Leonard to an endorsement deal with a firm that they had an association with, the now bankrupt, environmentally focused financial firm Aspiration, which the owner of that has been sentenced to a jail term. But Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, wanted to get a big name. There's limitations on how much you could pay. So according to what Pablo Torre found out some months ago, that Leonard had signed a 4-year, $28 million endorsement deal for which he did nothing. Didn't cut a single commercial, nothing. He was an endorser who didn't do a damn thing, and he got an extra $28 million. That would have seemed to have been enough, like Passover, Diano. No. According to Pablo Torre, there was another deal with Daktronics, the company known for producing stadium video boards, and he has a source that said, Leonard's deal with them was 1,000% away to circumvent the cap. Now, there's no dollar figure on that, but how many more millions do you need? My God. And not only that, with Aspiration, that the owner of the company, Joe Sandberg, has pleaded guilty in October and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Steve Ballmer invested $60 million in the company, and there's reason to believe he did that to make sure that Kawhi got his $28 million. It couldn't come from him. It had to be circumvented through the company. I mean, the NBA says they're still investigating this, but if this is another deal on top of the deal that he got from this phony baloney Aspiration, league's got to come down hard on them. They really do. So anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.